The screams of the abandoned twin babies pierced the empty park as rain began to fall. A homeless girl approached with trembling hands, pulling a strange blue vial from her tattered coat. But no one could have imagined what happened when the liquid touched their lips. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible true stories that will touch your heart. Thunder rumbled across Central Park as sheets of rain began to fall on that fateful October afternoon. 28-year-old Maxwell Price, heir to the Price Pharmaceuticals empire, stood beneath the shelter of his private car services umbrella, staring at his buzzing phone. Another board meeting cancelled, another decision delayed, another day of his $47 billion empire running itself while he struggled to find purpose after his wife's death. "Sir, should we proceed to the office?" his driver asked, eyeing the darkening sky. "No, Thomas, I need to clear my head. I'll walk through the park. Meet me on the east side in an hour." Thomas hesitated. "Sir, the storm." "The storm suits my mood," Maxwell said, stepping out from the umbrella's protection. The cold rain immediately soaked through his $10,000 suit, but he didn't care. Nothing seemed to matter these days. He walked aimlessly along the winding paths, passing the occasional jogger, rushing to beat the downpour. The park was emptying quickly as the weather worsened. His thoughts drifted to the twin boys waiting at home, 6-month-old Connor and Caleb, who had barely opened their eyes since birth. The specialist said they might never develop normally, that their neurological condition was beyond modern medicine's understanding. His sons, the only part of Catherine he had left, trapped in bodies that wouldn't respond, with minds that couldn't connect. A piercing cry cut through the rain's white noise. Maxwell stopped, listening. The cry came again. No. 2 distinct cries, harmonizing in their distress. He followed the sound to a secluded area near the Bethesda fountain. There, partially hidden by dripping foliage, stood an expensive-looking double stroller. The cries emanated from within, but no adult was visible nearby. Maxwell scanned the area, baffled. Who would leave infants alone in this weather? As he approached the stroller, he noticed movement beside it. A small figure knelt in the mud, rummaging through a worn backpack. A child, no, a young girl, perhaps 12 or 13, dressed in layers of mismatched clothing, her dark hair plastered to her thin face by the rain. "Hey!" Maxwell called out. "Whose babies are these?" The girl startled, nearly falling backward. Her eyes, startlingly green, widened in fear. She clutched something tightly to her chest. "I wasn't stealing nothing," she said defensively. "They've been crying for hours. Nobody's coming." Maxwell reached the stroller and looked inside. 2 infants, no more than 6 months old, red-faced from crying, dressed in expensive designer clothes. They looked remarkably similar to his own boys, twins with the same delicate features, the same unfocused eyes that never quite seemed to open fully. "Where are their parents?" he demanded, looking around again. "Don't know," the girl said, slowly standing. "Been watching them 3 hours now. Lady in the fancy coat parked them here and walked away talking on her phone. Never came back." Maxwell checked his watch. 3 hours? In this weather? "Did you call the police?" The girl gave him a look that made him feel foolish. Of course she hadn't. Now that he looked more closely, he could see she wasn't just any child. Her clothes were too worn, her face too weathered for her age. The wariness in her eyes told a story of street survival. "I was gonna," she mumbled. "But my phone." She gestured vaguely, implying she had no phone. The babies continued to wail, their cries growing more desperate. "They're hungry," the girl said, "and cold. Been trying to figure out what to do." Maxwell pulled out his phone to call emergency services when he noticed what the girl was holding. A small blue vial with an iridescent glow that seemed to pulse even in the dim, rainy light. "What is that?" he asked sharply. The girl pulled back. "Medicine. For them. Found it in the diaper bag." "Let me see that," Maxwell demanded, holding out his hand. His pharmaceutical background set off alarm bells. No prescribed medication for infants looked like that. Reluctantly, the girl handed over the vial. Maxwell examined it closely. No label, no markings. The liquid inside shifted and swirled as if alive, giving off a faint blue luminescence. In his 15 years running Price Pharmaceuticals, he'd never seen anything like it. "This isn't baby formula," he said grimly. "Were you about to give this to them?" The girl's chin jutted out defensively. "Already did, just a few drops." They stopped crying for a minute, then started again. "I think they need more." Maxwell nearly dropped the vial. "You did what? This could be anything. It could be poison." "They opened their eyes," the girl said quietly. Maxwell froze. "What did you say?" "They opened their eyes wide, just for a second, then they looked right at me. Like they really saw me." Maxwell stared at the crying infants, then at the mysterious vial. Something impossible sparked in his mind. His sons had the same issue. Eyes that never fully opened, that never seemed to focus or connect. Countless specialists had failed to help them. As he hesitated, one of the babies in the stroller let out a cry, so pained it seemed to pierce his very soul. "My name's Lily," the girl said suddenly. "I'm 12, been on my own since my mom died last winter. I wouldn't hurt no babies. But they need help, now." A crack of lightning illuminated her face, thin, determined, and utterly sincere. In that moment, Maxwell Price, a man who made billion-dollar decisions daily, found himself unable to decide what to do next. Call the authorities? Take the babies himself? And what about this strange blue liquid and the homeless child who had appointed herself their protector? The rain poured down harder as the first impossible choice of many loomed before him. Lily clutched her tattered backpack to her chest as the well-dressed man examined the twins. 3 months on the streets had taught her to be wary of adults, especially rich ones who asked too many questions. "We need to get these babies out of the rain," the man said, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of someone used to being obeyed. "I'm calling the police." Panic surged through Lily. "No, no cops!" The words burst from her before she could stop them. The man's eyes narrowed. "Why not?" Lily shifted uncomfortably. She couldn't explain her instinctive fear of authorities, how the system had failed her after Mom died, how she'd escaped from her 3rd foster home when her guardian had started coming into her room at night, or how she'd learned that people like her disappeared into the system, sometimes forever. "Just please," she said, "not yet. Something's not right about these babies." To her surprise, the man's expression changed, softening slightly. "I'm Maxwell Price," he said after a moment's hesitation. "I have twins too, 6 months old." One of the babies in the stroller hiccuped and started crying again. Lily automatically reached for the blue vial, but Maxwell held it away. "We don't know what this is," he said firmly. "I do," Lily insisted. "It helps them. I've been watching that lady with them for weeks. She comes to the park every Tuesday and Friday at exactly 2 p.m. Always gives them a few drops when they cry. Then they open their eyes and look around like they're actually awake." "You've been watching them for weeks?" Maxwell asked incredulously. Lily shrugged. "The park's warm when it's not raining. I come here to read." She didn't mention that she sometimes picked through discarded lunches from the nearby cafe, or that the bathroom facilities were cleaner than most. Maxwell seemed to be processing this information, his gaze moving from Lily to the babies to the vial, and back again. "The lady who left them," he said slowly. "Describe her." "Tall, blonde hair cut short, always wears sunglasses and fancy clothes, talks on her phone a lot, has a weird accent." Lily hesitated. "She doesn't love them. Never touches them except to give the medicine." "How do you know she doesn't love them?" "I just know," Lily said simply. She'd spent enough time watching families in the park to recognize the difference. She treats them like a job. a job. The word hung between them as another crack of lightning split the sky, followed almost immediately by a deafening thunderclap. One of the babies began screaming in earnest. Maxwell made a decision. "My car is waiting on Fifth Avenue. We're taking these children somewhere dry, and then we're figuring this out." His tone left no room for argument. "What about me?" Lily asked, suddenly terrified he would leave her behind. Maxwell looked at her drenched form and sighed. "You're coming too. You're a witness." 20 minutes later, Lily found herself in the most luxurious apartment she'd ever seen. A penthouse overlooking Central Park, with ceilings so high they made her dizzy. The twins, now quieter but still fussing, were being examined by a private doctor Maxwell had summoned with a single phone call. "No identification on them or in the stroller," Maxwell reported, returning to the living room where Lily sat awkwardly on the edge of a white sofa, afraid to get it wet or dirty. "No notes, no contact information. Just diapers, blankets and that." He nodded toward the blue vial, which sat on a glass table. The doctor, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Chen, looked up from examining the second twin. "These babies are approximately 6 months old, well-nourished, and despite their current distress, appear to be in good health," she reported. "However..." "However what?" Maxwell prompted. Dr. Chen frowned. "Their pupils are unusual. Dilated but unresponsive to light, and there's something about their muscle tone that reminds me of certain neurological conditions. They remind me of your boys, Maxwell." Maxwell tensed visibly. "That's impossible." "What boys?" Lily asked. Maxwell ignored her question. "What about the substance?" he asked Dr. Chen, gesturing to the blue vial. The doctor shook her head. "I'd need proper lab equipment to analyze it. I strongly advise against administering an unknown substance to these infants." "But I already told you, it helps them," Lily protested. "I've seen it." "Doctor..." Chen gave her a patronizing smile. "Young lady, I understand you're concerned," but she was interrupted by a shrill cry from one of the twins. The baby's face contorted in discomfort, body stiffening. Then the second twin began the same distressed wailing. "They need it," Lily insisted, standing up. "They're in pain." Maxwell looked torn, his gaze moving from the crying infants to the mysterious vial. "Dr. Chen, I need you to take this to the lab immediately. Full analysis. Priority status." The doctor nodded, carefully taking the vial and placing it in her bag. "Wait!" Lily cried. "They need it now. You can't take it all." "Lily," Maxwell said firmly, "we can't just give them an unknown substance." "Then what about your twins?" she challenged. "You said you have twins too, with the same, whatever this is. Where are they?" A heavy silence fell, broken only by the crying of the abandoned infants. Maxwell's face went through a complex series of emotions before settling on resignation. "Teresa," he called, and a uniformed nanny appeared so quickly she must have been waiting nearby. "Please bring Connor and Caleb." Minutes later, Lily found herself staring at 2 more babies, identical to the ones from the park, except for their clothing. These twins were quiet, unnaturally so, their eyes half closed, their little bodies barely moving. "This is their normal state," Maxwell said quietly. "Born this way, every specialist, every test, every treatment, nothing helps. It's as if they're only half here." Lily approached Maxwell's twins cautiously. "They're the same," she whispered. "Exactly the same." Dr. Chen was examining all 4 babies now, her professional composure cracking. "This is unprecedented. They appear to be suffering from identical neurological symptoms, yet the condition doesn't match anything in medical literature." "They need the medicine," Lily insisted again. "Just a drop, please." Before anyone could stop her, she lunged for Dr. Chen's bag. Maxwell moved to intercept her, but she was quicker, her small fingers closing around the blue vial. In the scuffle, the top came loose, and a single drop fell onto the back of Lily's hand. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The drop seemed to sink into her skin, leaving a glowing blue trace that spread through her veins like lightning. Lily gasped, her eyes widening. "It burns!" she cried out, then froze. Her green eyes began to glow with the same ethereal blue light. "Lily!" Maxwell reached for her cautiously. When she spoke, her voice had changed, becoming deeper, older, with a strange accent. "The children must receive their nourishment. The awakening has begun." Then she collapsed to the floor, the vial rolling from her limp fingers. The world swirled in shades of blue as Lily floated somewhere between consciousness and something else. Voices echoed around her, distorted and distant. Neurological activity off the charts. Never seen anything like it. Should call authorities immediately. Something cool pressed against her forehead. Lily forced her eyes open, blinking against harsh light. Dr. Chen leaned over her, pressing a cold compress to her head. "She's waking up," the doctor called over her shoulder. Lily tried to sit up but fell back, dizzy. "What happened?" she mumbled. "You had some kind of seizure," Dr. Chen said, her clinical tone barely masking concern. "After contact with the substance." Memory rushed back, the blue liquid, the burning sensation, the strange voice that had used her mouth to speak. Lily shuddered. "The babies," she said suddenly. "Are they okay?" "They're fine," Maxwell's voice came from somewhere to her left. "All 4 of them are sleeping now." Lily turned her head to see Maxwell standing by a window, silhouetted against the New York skyline. Night had fallen while she was unconscious, the cityscape a glittering tapestry of lights. How long had she been out? "What happened to me?" she asked, her voice small. Maxwell and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. "We're not sure," Dr. Chen admitted. "But your neurological readings were unusual during the episode." "I heard a voice," Lily whispered, "inside my head. It wasn't me talking. It was someone else." Another glance between the adults, heavier this time. "Lily," Maxwell said, approaching the couch where she lay, "I need you to tell me everything you know about the woman who abandoned those twins. Every detail, no matter how small." Lily closed her eyes, picturing the woman. "Like I said, she's tall, blonde, fancy, always checking her watch. Sometimes she talks to the babies when she thinks no one's listening. What does she say? Weird stuff like, 'Your communion approaches' and 'The vessels are developing nicely.' I thought maybe she was from some strange religion." Maxwell's face paled. "Did she ever mention a name? Or a place?" Lily thought hard. "Once, on her phone. She said something about Phase 2 proceeding at Celestial Heights. And a name, Elena, Dr. Elena something." Maxwell's sharp intake of breath made Lily sit up despite her dizziness. "What? Do you know her?" Instead of answering, Maxwell turned to Dr. Chen. "I need you to go to the lab, now. Full analysis of the substance, and I need genetic profiles on all 4 infants. Compare them to each other and to—" he hesitated, "and to my late wife's profile. We have her DNA on file from the treatments." Dr. Chen nodded gravely. "I'll have preliminary results by morning." Doom! She packed her medical bag, including the blue vial, which had been sealed in a specimen container. "Don't let anyone know what you're doing," Maxwell warned. "This stays between us for now." After the doctor left, Lily found herself alone with the billionaire in his massive penthouse. An awkward silence fell. "You should rest," Maxwell finally said. "I've had a guest room prepared." "What about those babies from the park?" Lily asked. "Shouldn't we call someone?" Maxwell's expression hardened. "Not yet. Something's happening here that goes beyond abandoned infants. I need to understand what we're dealing with first." "You know something," Lily accused. "Something you're not telling me." Maxwell hesitated, then sighed heavily. He sat on the edge of the coffee table, facing her. Celestial Heights is a research facility owned by a subsidiary of my company. It specializes in advanced neurological treatments. And Dr. Elena Volkov was my wife's doctor before she died. Your wife? Lily echoed. Catherine. She died during childbirth, with Connor and Caleb. His voice cracked slightly. She had been participating in an experimental treatment program for a rare degenerative condition. Dr. Volkov was leading the research. And now there are 2 more sets of twins with the same weird symptoms as yours, Lily said slowly, piecing it together. It can't be coincidence, Maxwell agreed grimly. But what does it mean? And what was that blue stuff? And why did I change when it touched me? Maxwell shook his head. I don't know, but I intend to find out. He stood up. You should sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day. Lily wanted to protest, to demand more answers, but exhaustion was pulling her under again. She allowed herself to be led to a guest bedroom larger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. As Maxwell turned to leave, she called out, Why are you trusting me with all this? I'm just a homeless kid. He paused at the door. Because you helped those babies when no one else would, and because you've seen things no one else has. He gave her a tired smile. Get some rest, Lily. Sleep came quickly, but it wasn't peaceful. In her dreams, Lily floated in an ocean of blue light. Voices whispered around her in a language she didn't understand, but somehow comprehended on a deeper level. The awakening approaches. The vessels must be prepared. The convergence cannot be stopped. She saw images of babies, dozens, perhaps hundreds, all with the same half-closed eyes as Maxwell's twins, all waiting for something. All part of some vast, incomprehensible plan, and behind it all a presence, watching, waiting, growing stronger. Lily woke with a gasp, heart pounding. The digital clock on the nightstand read 3:17 a.m. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the climate control system. Something pulled her from the bed, an instinct, a compulsion. Her bare feet made no sound on the plush carpet as she navigated the dark apartment, somehow knowing exactly where to go. The nursery door was ajar, a soft nightlight casting gentle shadows. 4 cribs had been arranged in the spacious room, 2 on each side. Lily approached them cautiously. All 4 babies slept peacefully, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchronization. But as Lily watched, their eyelids began to flutter, then slowly opened, all at the exact same moment. 8 identical pairs of eyes, now glowing with the same ethereal blue that had coursed through Lily's veins. You're awake, she whispered, not knowing why she said it. As one, the babies turned their heads toward her. Their lips moved, not with the random movements of infants, but in precise, synchronized patterns. No sound came out, but Lily could hear their voices in her mind, speaking as one. The bridge approaches. You will guide us. Guide you where? Lily whispered, trembling. Home. The blue glow faded from their eyes, and they closed again, returning to normal sleep as if nothing had happened. Lily backed away, then turned and ran straight into Maxwell, who stood in the doorway. What are you doing in here? He demanded, his voice low but intense. They woke up, Lily stammered. All of them. Their eyes were glowing blue like mine did. They spoke to me. Instead of dismissing her as she expected, Maxwell's expression grew even more serious. What did they say? Something about a bridge approaching, and that I would guide them home. Lily hugged herself, suddenly cold, despite the perfectly regulated temperature. What's happening to me, to them? Maxwell looked past her to the sleeping infants, his face unreadable in the dim light. I don't know, he admitted, but I think we're running out of time to find out. As if confirming his words, all 4 babies sighed in their sleep, a sound so eerily synchronized it sent shivers down Lily's spine. Whatever was happening, it was only just beginning. Morning arrived with a pale October sun struggling through heavy clouds. Lily stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Maxwell's penthouse, watching the city far below slowly come to life. She'd never seen New York from this height before, the people reduced to tiny specks, the massive buildings diminished to toy-like proportions. It made her feel both powerful and insignificant. Behind her, Maxwell paced the living room, phone pressed to his ear. He'd been making calls since dawn, his voice alternating between commanding and concerned. Lily had caught fragments. Full security detail. Complete lockdown of the facility. All records from the Prometheus project. The twins, all four of them, were being watched by two nurses in the nursery. Doctor. Jen had not yet returned with the test results, and the tension in the penthouse was palpable. Lily's stomach growled loudly, reminding her she hadn't eaten since yesterday's half-sandwich salvaged from a park trash can. The thought made her flush with embarrassment. What must Maxwell think of her? Dirty, homeless, picking through garbage. As if reading her thoughts, Maxwell ended his call and turned to her. "You must be hungry. I'll have something sent up." Before Lily could respond, the elevator chimed. Both of them tensed, but it was only Teresa, the nanny, returning with shopping bags. "Everything you requested, Mr. Price," she said, setting the bags down. She gave Lily a curious look, but didn't comment on the strange girl's presence in her employer's home. "Thank you, Teresa. Could you please arrange breakfast for our guest?" Maxwell gestured toward the bags. "Some clothes for you, Lily. The bathroom is through there if you'd like to clean up." Lily stared at the designer shopping bags, then at her own grimy hands. How long had it been since she'd had a proper shower, since she'd worn clean clothes that weren't scavenged from donation bins? "Thank you," she managed, gathering the bags. The bathroom was bigger than the entire studio apartment she'd shared with her mother before everything fell apart. Marble and glass gleamed under soft lighting, and the shower had more buttons and nozzles than she knew what to do with. For a moment, she just stood there, overwhelmed. Then slowly, she began to undress, wincing at how her clothes stuck to her in places, how they smelled of street and sweat and survival. She avoided looking in the mirror, not wanting to see what these past months had done to her. The water was gloriously hot. The pressure perfect. Lily used every product on the shower caddy, washing away layers of grime and despair. By the time she emerged, pink-skinned and wrapped in the fluffiest towel she'd ever felt, she almost felt human again. The clothes fit perfectly. Jeans, a soft green sweater, even underwear and socks, all in exactly her size. Had Maxwell guessed? Or was this another sign of his incredible wealth and influence? Either way, the simple luxury of clean, new clothes nearly brought tears to her eyes. When she returned to the living room, her damp hair combed back from her face, Maxwell did a double-take. Without the dirt and oversized clothes, Lily looked her age, a pretty 12-year-old with intelligent green eyes and a dusting of freckles across her nose. "Better?" he asked. Lily nodded, suddenly shy. "Thank you." A breakfast spread waited on the dining table, eggs, pastries, fresh fruit, juices. Lily tried not to fall upon it like a starving animal, but her restraint lasted only until the first bite of buttery croissant hit her tongue. She ate with the focused intensity of someone who had learned that meals were not guaranteed. Maxwell watched her for a moment, then said quietly, "When did you last have a proper meal, Lily?" She shrugged, mouth too full to answer politely. "And where have you been staying?" Another shrug. "Around, parks mostly. There's a shelter on 28th, but they ask too many questions. What happened to your parents?" His tone was gentle but direct. Lily put down her fork. Appetite suddenly diminished. "Mom died in January. Cancer. Dad left years ago, never knew him." She took a breath. "They put me in the system. First place was okay, just crowded. Second was with a lady who locked the fridge. Third was..." She trailed off, not wanting to articulate those memories. I left. Been on my own since April. Maxwell's expression darkened. You've been homeless for 6 months. You're 12 years old. I'm almost 13, Lily corrected defensively, and I'm doing okay. I know which libraries let you stay all day. I know where the free meal programs are. I'm careful. No one's looking for you. Maybe. Probably gave up by now. She picked up her fork again, stabbing at a piece of melon. Can we talk about something else, like what's happening with those babies? Maxwell seemed about to press further, but the elevator chimed again. This time it was Dr. Chen, looking exhausted but alert, a secure tablet clutched in her hands. I have the results, she said without preamble. Maxwell gestured for her to sit. Tell me. Doctor. Chen placed the tablet on the table, bringing up a series of complex charts and data. The substance is like nothing I've ever seen. It has properties of both a pharmaceutical compound and something else. The molecular structure keeps changing, adapting. It's almost like it's alive. Alive? Maxwell echoed. That's impossible. So is what it does to neural activity, Dr. Chen countered, bringing up a brain scan. This is a standard reading from a 6-month-old infant. She swiped to another image. This is from one of the abandoned twins, taken last night. Even Lily could see the difference. Where the first image showed scattered patches of color, the second was alive with bright, interconnected patterns. Their brains are operating at levels we've never recorded in humans, especially not infants, Dr. Chen explained. It's as if entire regions that should be dormant are fully activated. What about the DNA tests? Maxwell asked. Dr. Chen hesitated, glancing at Lily. She stays, Maxwell said firmly. She's involved now. With a nod, Dr. Chen continued. The abandoned twins are genetically identical to Connor and Caleb. Maxwell went very still. That's not possible. They can't be identical to my sons. Not just similar, Maxwell, identical, down to the last marker. Dr. Chen's voice softened. And they all share half their DNA with Catherine. They're all her biological children. The room fell silent. Lily looked between the two adults, trying to process what this meant. Catherine only carried twins, Maxwell said finally, his voice barely audible. There were only 2 babies in the ultrasounds, in the delivery room. I know, Dr. Chen said gently. That's why I ran the tests 3 times. There's no mistake. Maxwell stood abruptly, turning to face the windows. His shoulders were rigid with tension. And the genetic father of the abandoned twins. Not you, Doctor. Chen confirmed what they already suspected. But the paternal DNA is unusual. There are markers I can't identify, sequences that don't appear in any database. Lily finally found her voice. So what does this mean? That lady just abandoned clones of your babies in the park? Not clones, Dr. Chen corrected. They share a mother but have different fathers, half-siblings with identical maternal DNA. But how? Lily persisted. His wife died, right? How could there be more babies? Maxwell turned back to them, his face ashen but resolute. Celestial Heights, the Prometheus Project, Elena Volkov. He picked up his phone. I'm going there now. I need answers. I'm coming too, Lily declared, standing up. Absolutely not, Maxwell retorted. This could be dangerous. Those babies talk to me, Lily insisted. In my head. They said I'm supposed to guide them, and that blue stuff did something to me. She pushed up her sleeve to reveal her forearm, where faint blue lines were still visible beneath her skin, tracing the path of her veins. I'm already part of this, whatever it is. Maxwell and Dr. Chen stared at her arm in shock. That should have metabolized out of your system by now, Dr. Chen said, approaching to examine the blue tracery. It's getting stronger, Lily admitted. I can feel it pulsing, and sometimes I hear whispers like the baby's last night, but fainter. Dr. Chen looked at Maxwell. She needs to be monitored. And she's right. She's already involved. Maxwell ran a hand through his hair, conflicted. Finally, he nodded. Fine. But you stay close to me at all times, understand? And if I say run, you run. What about the babies? Lily asked. They'll stay here with the nurses and Teresa. Maximum security. No one in or out without my direct authorization. He checked his watch. The helicopter will be ready in 20 minutes. Dr. Chen, are you coming? Ooh, someone should stay with the infants, she replied. Monitor their condition. I've alerted my most trusted colleagues to be on standby if needed. Maxwell nodded. Send everything you've found to my secure server and Elena Volkov's personnel file. As they prepared to leave, Lily felt a strange buzzing sensation in her head, growing stronger with each passing minute. The blue lines in her arms pulsed in rhythm with it. Something was happening, something connected to the babies, to the mysterious substance, to whatever secrets awaited them at celestial heights. Whatever it was, Lily knew with absolute certainty that nothing would be the same after today. The helicopter cut through wispy clouds as it headed north along the Hudson River. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching the city give way to the lush autumn landscape of upstate New York. Under different circumstances, she might have been thrilled by her first helicopter ride, but anxiety had twisted her stomach into knots. Beside her, Maxwell studied a tablet displaying personnel files and research documents. His face had settled into a mask of cold determination. So this Dr. Volkov, Lily said, breaking the silence. She was treating your wife before she died. Maxwell nodded without looking up. Elena was a brilliant neurologist, possibly the best in her field. Catherine had been diagnosed with Bader's syndrome, a rare degenerative condition. Elena promised a revolutionary treatment, and it didn't work. It seemed to at first. Catherine's symptoms improved dramatically, but then she became pregnant. His voice tightened. The pregnancy accelerated the degeneration. By the delivery, her body was failing. She died minutes after the twins were born. I'm sorry, Lily said quietly. Maxwell finally looked up, his eyes haunted. The boys were born with their eyes half closed, unresponsive. Every specialist said the same thing, some unknown neurological condition, possibly connected to the experimental treatment Catherine received. Elena disappeared the day after the delivery. The official story was that she'd accepted a position overseas, but now... Now you think she took your wife's stuff and made more babies? Lily frowned. But why? And why leave them in the park for me to find? I don't know, Maxwell admitted, but we're going to find out. The helicopter began its descent toward a sprawling complex nestled among the trees. Celestial Heights looked more like a luxury resort than a medical facility. Gleaming glass and steel structures connected by covered walkways, surrounded by immaculately landscaped grounds. It looks peaceful, Lily commented. Appearances can be deceiving, Maxwell replied grimly. They landed on a helipad where a security team waited. The head of security, a former military man named Briggs, greeted Maxwell with practiced efficiency. The facility is on lockdown as ordered, sir. All personnel accounted for except Dr. Volkov, who hasn't reported in for 3 days. And the Prometheus project files? Secured in the central server room, but there appear to be significant deletions. Maxwell's jaw tightened. Take us there first. As they walked through the facility, Lily noticed the curious glances from staff members, partly directed at Maxwell, whose visit was clearly unexpected, but mostly at her, a child in a place where children didn't belong. The central server room was a climate-controlled space filled with humming equipment. A nervous-looking technician waited for them, fingers fidgeting with his ID badge. Mr. Price, sir, we've retrieved what we could, but Dr. Volkov implemented a cascading deletion protocol, very sophisticated. Show me what you've salvaged, Maxwell ordered. The technician brought up fragmented files on a large screen. Most were corrupted beyond recognition, but a few contained legible sections. One showed a molecular diagram of what Lily recognized as the blue substance. Another contained a list of dates and status reports. Vessel Group A, gestation complete. Subjects C1 and C2 delivered. Maternal source expired during procedure. Neural development below expectations. Vessel Group B, artificial gestation proceeding on schedule. Subjects V1 and V2 showing improved neural patterns after Protocol 7 modification. What does Vessel Group mean? Lily whispered to Maxwell. His expression had gone dangerously dark. I think they were using women as surrogates. Vessel Group A must refer to Catherine. His voice was controlled but trembling with rage. They used my wife as a test subject. The technician scrolled to another partially recovered file, this one containing video fragments. The timestamp showed a date just 3 months ago. The image quality was poor, but it clearly showed a laboratory where 2 infants, twins, lay in specialized incubators while a team in medical garb monitored them. A woman with short blonde hair directed the proceedings. That's her, Lily gasped. The woman from the park. Maxwell nodded, his eyes never leaving the screen. Elena Volkov. In the video, Dr. Volkov approached the incubators with a syringe containing the now familiar blue liquid. As she administered it to each infant, monitoring equipment around them went haywire. The baby's eyes opened fully for the first time, glowing with ethereal blue light. Dr. Volkov turned to the camera, her expression triumphant. Phase 2, successful. The awakening has begun. We are ready to proceed with Convergence Protocol. The video ended abruptly. What's the Convergence Protocol? Lily asked. Before Maxwell could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the facility. Briggs rushed into the server room, hand on his weapon. Sir, we have a breach in Section C, the cryogenics lab. Cryogenics? What are they storing there? Maxwell demanded. According to the manifest embryonic material, Briggs reported. Security footage shows Dr. Volkov. She's here, sir. Maxwell's decision was immediate. Lock down the entire wing, no one in or out. He turned to Lily. Stay close to me. They moved swiftly through the facility, flanked by security personnel. The alarm continued to wail as emergency protocols activated, sealing doors and shuttering windows automatically. Section C was a separate building connected by an enclosed walkway. As they approached, Lily felt the buzzing in her head intensify, the blue lines in her arms glowing brighter beneath her skin. Something's happening, she warned Maxwell, showing him her arm. He frowned, but pressed forward, pushing through a set of double doors into a laboratory space. The room was in disarray. Equipment overturned, alarms blaring from multiple workstations. At the center stood a tall blonde woman in a lab coat, Dr. Elena Volkov. She was removing cylindrical containers from a large cryogenic storage unit, placing them carefully in a specialized transport case. Elena! Maxwell called out, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. She turned slowly, unsurprised. Her features were sharp, attractive in a clinical way, with ice-blue eyes that assessed them coldly. Maxwell Price, right on schedule. Her accent was subtle but distinct, Eastern European, perhaps Russian. What have you done? Maxwell demanded, advancing toward her. The babies, all of them. What have you done? Elena's lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I've advanced human evolution by decades, perhaps centuries. Her gaze shifted to Lily, sharpening with interest. You found the bridge. She stepped closer, studying the glowing blue traces in Lily's arms. Fascinating. The neural synchronization has already begun. Lily shrank back against Maxwell. Why are you calling me that? What did you do to those babies? They're not just babies, Elena replied. They're the first generation of a new paradigm. Humans with activated neural capacities beyond anything our species has ever achieved. She gestured to the containers she'd been collecting. and these will be the second generation, improved based on our findings. Our findings? Maxwell's voice was dangerous. You used my wife, my company, my resources for this experiment? Catherine was a willing participant, Elena countered. She understood the importance of our work. She thought you were treating her disease. I was, but the treatment was merely the first step. The Prometheus project was always about more than curing one woman's degenerative condition. Elena's eyes gleamed with fervor. It's about transcendence, Maxwell, evolution by design rather than chance. And the abandoned twins, Maxwell demanded. Why leave them in the park? A necessary exposure test. We needed to see how they would interact with an untreated human population. Elena glanced at Lily again, though finding the bridge was an unexpected bonus. Stop calling me that, Lily said, her fear giving way to anger. I'm not a bridge, I'm a person. You're both, Elena said simply. The blue serum created a neural connection between you and the children. You're the conduit, the bridge between their developing consciousness and the world. They chose you. Wookie, the buzzing in Lily's head intensified, making her wince. Images flashed through her mind, stars, distant worlds, patterns of light and energy beyond her comprehension. What's happening to me? She gasped. The convergence is accelerating, Elena said, checking her watch. We're running out of time. Time for what? Maxwell demanded. Instead of answering, Elena pressed a button on a nearby console. Immediately, the lights in the lab dimmed, emergency lighting casting everything in an eerie red glow. I've initiated the facility's self-destruct protocol, she announced calmly. In 15 minutes, this building and everything in it will be destroyed, erasing all evidence of Phase 1 and 2. You're insane, Maxwell breathed. I'm practical, Elena countered, securing the transport case. The next phase must proceed without interference. You're not going anywhere, Maxwell said, gesturing to the security team that had moved to block the exits. Eleanor smiled again, this time with genuine amusement. I'm not the one who needs to leave, Maxwell. She looked directly at Lily. She is. The bridge must return to the vessels. They're calling her now, aren't they? As if in response, the blue traces in Lily's arms pulsed brightly, and the buzzing in her head formed into clear, urgent words. Danger. Return. Now. With a cry, Lily collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. Lily! Maxwell knelt beside her. The babies, she gasped. Something's wrong. They're scared. We need to go back. A tremendous explosion rocked the building, sending equipment crashing to the floor. Through the chaos, Eleanor moved with practiced efficiency, retrieving her case and heading toward a previously concealed exit at the rear of the lab. You have 13 minutes to evacuate, she called over her shoulder. I suggest you use them wisely, Maxwell. Your sons need you, all of them. She disappeared through the hidden door, which sealed shut behind her. Briggs was already coordinating evacuation procedures, directing staff toward emergency exits. Sir, we need to go now. Maxwell helped Lily to her feet. Can you walk? She nodded, though her vision swam with blue light and distant stars. The babies, she repeated. They're calling me. As they rushed toward the helipad, another explosion tore through the facility. Flames began consuming the beautiful buildings, thick smoke billowing into the clear autumn sky. In the helicopter, rising above the destruction, Lily pressed her hands against her temples, trying to quiet the voices that had become a chorus of fear and need. Faster, she urged the pilot. We need to go faster. Maxwell, watching his multi-million-dollar research facility burn below them, made a call to the penthouse. No one answered. Try again, he ordered his assistant, who had joined them at the helipad. After multiple attempts, the grim truth became clear. The penthouse security team wasn't responding. Something's happened, Maxwell said, his face pale with fear. We need to get back, now. Lily leaned against the helicopter window, the blue glow beneath her skin pulsating in time with her racing heart. In her mind, 4 small voices called out in perfect unison. The convergence comes. The bridge must guide us. Home awaits beyond the stars. The journey back to Manhattan seemed to take an eternity. Lily's condition deteriorated with each passing minute, the blue glow beneath her skin spreading until her entire body was traced with luminescent veins. Maxwell watched helplessly as she drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling about stars and voices and bridges. "ETA 5 minutes, sir," the pilot announced as the New York skyline came into view. Maxwell nodded grimly, his attention divided between Lily's worsening state and the still unanswered calls to his penthouse security team. Whatever was happening, they were flying straight into it. "Lily," he said, gently shaking her shoulder. "Lily, we're almost there. I need you to focus." Her eyes fluttered open, the green irises now ringed with the same ethereal blue as the substance. "They're waiting," she whispered. "All of them." "Who's waiting? The babies?" She nodded weakly. "And the others?" "What others, Lily?" But she had drifted away again, her consciousness somewhere beyond his reach. As they approached Maxwell's building, the pilot's voice came sharp with alarm. "Sir, you need to see this." Maxwell looked out the window and froze. The entire top of his building was surrounded by an iridescent blue dome of energy, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. Even from a distance, it was clear that the dome encompassed his penthouse and several floors below it. "What the hell is that?" he breathed. Lily stirred beside him. "The convergence begins," she murmured, her voice once again carrying that strange, older quality. "The vessels prepare the way." The helicopter circled the building at a safe distance. Emergency vehicles had surrounded the base, and Maxwell could see figures on nearby rooftops. Police, probably, or Homeland Security. The blue dome showed no signs of instability or weakness. It simply existed, defying all known laws of physics. "Can we land?" Maxwell asked the pilot. "Not on your helipad, sir. It's inside that, whatever it is. Nearest safe landing zone is 3 blocks away." "Do it." Minutes later, they were hurrying through streets filled with onlookers and emergency personnel. Maxwell had to carry Lily, who could no longer walk on her own. Her slight body was alarmingly hot to the touch, as if she were burning with fever. They were stopped at the police barricade surrounding his building. "Sorry, sir, no one goes past this point," a stern-faced officer informed them. Maxwell shifted Lily in his arms. "I'm Maxwell Price. That's my building. My children are in there." Recognition dawned in the officer's eyes. "Mr. Price, yes. The security team mentioned you might return. You need to speak with the incident commander immediately." They were escorted to a mobile command center where a harried-looking NYPD captain and a woman in an FBI windbreaker were studying surveillance footage of the Blue Dome. "Mr. Price," the captain greeted him tersely, "we've been trying to reach you." "What's happening in my building?" Maxwell demanded. The FBI agent stepped forward. "Special Agent Rivera, we were hoping you could tell us. The phenomenon began approximately 90 minutes ago. It appears to be centered in your penthouse, where we understand you have 4 infants in residence." "Yes, my sons and—" Maxwell hesitated, unsure how to explain the abandoned twins. "And their brothers. What about my staff? Teresa, the nurses, the security team?" "We've established communication with your head of security," Captain Reynolds explained. "He reports that everyone is alive and unharmed, but unable to leave the affected area. The field appears to allow people to enter, but not exit." "And the children?" A strange expression crossed the captain's face. "According to your security chief, the infants are at the center of the phenomenon. He says they're floating above their cribs, surrounded by the same energy field that's covering the building." Maxwell looked down at Lily, whose blue-traced body seemed to pulse in rhythm with the distant dome. "We need to get in there." "That's not advisable, sir," Agent Rivera said firmly. "We don't know what we're dealing with. We have specialists en route." "She's connected to them," Maxwell interrupted, nodding toward Lily. "She may be the only one who can stop whatever is happening." The officials exchanged doubtful glances. "The girl needs medical attention," Captain Reynolds observed. "No." Lily's voice came suddenly stronger. Her eyes opened, now glowing solid blue without any trace of their original green. "They're calling me. I need to go to them." Maxwell made an executive decision. "We're going in, now. You can assist us or detain us, but every minute we waste puts more people at risk." Perhaps it was his tone of authority, or perhaps it was the increasingly unstable energy readings they were receiving from the dome, but the officials relented. "We'll escort you to the building entrance," Agent Rivera conceded. "But we're sending in a tactical team with you." 10 minutes later, they stood in the lobby of Maxwell's building, staring at the elevators. According to security, the blue field started on the 58th floor, 6 floors below the penthouse. "Elevators are operational up to the 57th floor, a tactical officer reported. "After that, we'd need to use the stairs." Maxwell nodded, still carrying Lily, whose condition seemed to stabilize somewhat as they got closer to the penthouse. The blue tracing still covered her skin, but she was more alert now, her eyes fixed on the ceiling as if she could see through the floors to what awaited above. "I should go first," she said with surprising clarity. "Not a chance," Maxwell and Agent Rivera said simultaneously. The elevator ride was tense and silent. When the doors opened on the 57th floor, they were met by an eerie blue glow emanating from the stairwell. The tactical team's equipment began to malfunction, radios emitting only static. "Energy readings are off the charts," one agent reported, checking a handheld device, "like nothing we've ever recorded." "Stay back," Lily said suddenly, pushing away from Maxwell and standing on her own for the first time in hours. "It won't hurt me, but it might hurt you." Before anyone could stop her, she walked toward the stairwell, the blue energy seeming to reach out to her, curling around her small form like a greeting. "Lily, wait!" Maxwell called, starting after her. She turned back, her face serene despite the otherworldly glow of her eyes. "It's okay. I understand now. I know what they need me to do." "What who needs? The babies or Elena Volkov?" "Neither. Both. It's complicated." She smiled faintly. "They're not what you think they are, Maxwell. They're not just babies. Then what are they? Messengers. Bridges, like me, but different." She looked up the stairwell. "I have to go to them now. They're waiting." Against all protocol and common sense, Maxwell found himself nodding. "I'm coming with you." Agent Rivera stepped forward. "Mr. Price, we strongly advise—" "They're my sons." Maxwell cut her off. "All of them." Lily looked at the tactical team. "They can't come. The field won't let them pass." "How do you know that?" Agent Rivera demanded. "Because they're telling me," Lily replied simply, tapping her glowing temple. "Only people connected to them can enter now. That's me and Maxwell." She paused. "And maybe Dr. Chen, if she were here." The tactical team attempted to follow them into the stairwell, but were stopped by an invisible barrier that repelled them gently but firmly. After several failed attempts, they retreated to establish a perimeter and call for specialized backup. Maxwell and Lily ascended alone, the blue energy growing more intense with each floor. By the time they reached the penthouse level, they were walking through what felt like underwater light, rippling and flowing around them. The penthouse door stood open. Inside, the furniture had been pushed to the walls by some invisible force, creating a clear space in the center of the living room. Floating 3 feet above the floor were the 4 babies, arranged in a perfect circle, their tiny bodies surrounded by cocoons of blue energy. Their eyes were wide open, glowing like miniature stars. Teresa and the nurses, huddled in a corner, watched over by the security team. All appeared physically unharmed, but clearly terrified. "Mr. Price?" Teresa cried upon seeing him. "Thank God you're here. The babies, they just started floating, and then that blue stuff came from nowhere." "It's all right, Teresa," Maxwell said, with more confidence than he felt. "We're going to handle this." Lily walked directly to the center of the room, standing beneath the floating infants. The blue energy from her body reached upward, connecting with the cocoons surrounding each child. As the connections formed, the entire dome pulsed brighter. "What are they doing, Lily?" Maxwell asked, approaching cautiously. "Preparing," she answered, her voice once again carrying that older, wiser quality. "The vessels have reached sufficient neural development. The convergence approaches." "Convergence with what?" Maxwell pressed. Lily turned to him, her expression compassionate despite the alien blue glow of her eyes. "They are not from here, Maxwell. The consciousness within these forms, they come from very far away, a dying world that exists beyond the stars." Maxwell stared at the floating babies, his sons, Catherine's children, with growing horror and confusion. "Are you saying they're aliens?" "Not exactly. The bodies are human, born of human parents, but the neural patterns, the consciousness developing within them, those came from elsewhere, seeded here, growing slowly, waiting for the right moment." "And that blue substance?" "A neural catalyst. It accelerates the development of the consciousness, helps it connect with the human brain structure." Lily looked up at the babies with something like reverence. "They've been trying for decades to establish contact. Dr. Volkov finally created the right conditions." "But why?" Maxwell's voice cracked with emotion. "Why my wife? Why my sons?" Because Catherine was special. Her neural structure was uniquely compatible due to her condition, and because you provided the resources they needed." Lily's expression softened. "They're not here to harm anyone, Maxwell. They're refugees seeking sanctuary. Their world is dying. They sent their consciousness across the stars, hoping to find bodies that could house them, minds that could understand them. And now what? What is this convergence?" Before Lily could answer, the blue dome pulsed dramatically, and a shimmering portal began to form in the center of the room, directly beneath the floating infants. Through it, Maxwell could see what looked like stars, thousands of them, arranged in unfamiliar patterns. "Now," Lily said, rising slowly from the floor as the blue energy lifted her, "they call to the others, the ones who have waited, watching to see if the first messengers would be accepted or destroyed." "There are more of them?" Maxwell asked, backing away from the expanding portal. "Many more, waiting between the stars." Lily floated up to the same level as the babies. "But they will only come if invited, if the bridge opens the way." The realization hit Maxwell like a physical blow. You're the bridge they've been talking about." Lily nodded, her expression serene. "I can connect them to us, help them understand human thought, human emotion, and help us understand them. And if I don't want this, if I don't want my sons to be vessels for alien consciousness?" "It's too late, Maxwell. The process began before they were born. The beings you know as Connor and Caleb, they are already a blend of human and other." Lily's voice gentled. "But they are still your sons. They still carry Catherine's love, her essence, and they need your protection, your guidance in this world." The portal continued to expand, the star field beyond it growing clearer. Maxwell could now make out what appeared to be thousands of tiny blue lights, pulsating in rhythm with the energy surrounding his sons. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the humming energy. "Now," Lily said, reaching out to the 4 floating babies, her hands glowing with blue fire, "the convergence begins, and everything changes." As her hands connected with the infants, a surge of blue energy erupted from all 5 of them, shooting upward through the ceiling, visible for miles around Manhattan. The portal expanded to fill the entire living room, the star field so close it seemed one could step into it. And in that moment, as human and non-human consciousness converged, the future of both species hung in the balance. The choice before Maxwell Price was impossible, except that his sons were something more than human, vessels for a consciousness from beyond the stars, or fight against a process already too far advanced to stop. As the blue energy engulfed the penthouse and the watching city held its collective breath, Maxwell made the only choice a father could. He stepped forward, into the light. The blue light enveloped Maxwell completely as he stepped toward his floating sons. Time seemed to slow, then stop altogether. The agents, the security team, Teresa, all frozen in expressions of awe and terror. Only Maxwell, Lily, and the 4 infants existed in this moment of convergence, suspended between worlds. "You've chosen wisely," Lily said, her voice resonating from everywhere and nowhere. "They hoped you would understand." "I don't understand," Maxwell admitted, floating now himself, surrounded by the same ethereal blue energy that cocooned his sons. "But they're my children. Whatever else they might be, they're still mine." Lily smiled, the expression both childlike and ancient. "That's why they chose Catherine, why they chose you. The capacity for unconditional love, it's rare and precious across all worlds." The starfield portal expanded until the penthouse disappeared entirely. Maxwell found himself floating in what appeared to be space, yet he could breathe, could speak. Around him, the blue lights he'd glimpsed earlier, thousands of them, pulsed and danced. "What are they?" he whispered. "Consciousness," Lily explained, floating beside him. "Pure thought and emotion, seeking compatible vessels. Their physical forms died when their sun expanded beyond habitable range. They discovered how to encode their essential selves into a form of energy that could travel across the cosmos. And they chose Earth. Why? Compatibility. Humans are uniquely suited. Your brains have the right structure, the right potential, but adult minds are too rigid, too formed. Only developing infant minds can successfully integrate with them." The 4 babies drifted in formation between Maxwell and the swirling lights. Their blue glowing eyes were fully open now, alert and aware in a way that sent chills down Maxwell's spine. These were not the eyes of infants, but of ancient, knowing beings. What about the other babies? The ones Elena was creating at celestial heights? "Vessels for the next wave," Lily said, but prepared too quickly with too little care for the human component. Dr. Volkov became overzealous. The beings she communicated with grew concerned. That's why they influenced her to bring 2 of the vessels to the park. "Influenced her? You mean controlled her?" "No, they don't control. They suggest, encourage." Elena Volkov had her own motivations: money, recognition, immortality. Maxwell processed this. "So they what? Nudged her to abandon my son's siblings in the park? Why?" "To find me," Lily said simply. "They needed a bridge, someone young enough to be adaptable, but old enough to communicate, someone with the right neural structure, someone who would care without question. And that was you, a homeless girl who couldn't walk past crying babies." "Yes." One of the babies, Connor, Maxwell somehow knew, floated closer to him. A small, perfect hand reached out, touching his cheek. The moment of contact sent a surge of images, emotions, and knowledge flooding through Maxwell's mind. A dying world, billions of consciousnesses seeking escape, the long journey through the void, the careful observation of Earth and its inhabitants, the search for compatible partners. "They've been watching us for centuries," Maxwell gasped as the connection broke. "Learning our languages, our cultures, our biology." "Yes," Lily confirmed. waiting until we had developed the right technology to help complete the convergence. Dr. Volkov provided the final piece, the neural catalyst that allows full integration. And now what? They all come to Earth, take over our children? Not take over, join with, a symbiosis. Lily gestured toward the swirling lights. They don't want to replace humanity. They want to evolve with it, to share their knowledge, their 500 million years of civilization, in exchange for new physical existence. The four babies moved in unison, forming a square pattern. Between them, a new portal began to form, smaller but more intense. The convergence requires your consent, Lily explained. You speak for humanity in this moment as guardian of the first vessels. Maxwell looked at his floating sons, Connor and Caleb, who had never opened their eyes before the blue liquid, the other twins, abandoned in the park, who shared Catherine's DNA, but not his own. Whatever consciousness resided in them, they were still part human, part Catherine. What happens if I say no? He asked. They retreat. Their energy cannot sustain itself indefinitely. Eventually, they would fade from existence. The children would remain as they were, developmentally delayed, disconnected. And if I say yes? The convergence proceeds, a measured, controlled joining of our species. Beginning with special cases, children with compatible neurological conditions, and only with parental consent. No more deception, no more experiments without knowledge. An open exchange. Why should I trust them? Because they could have taken by force, but chose to ask instead. Because they want to share, not conquer. Lily's eyes softened. And because your sons have already begun the journey, to stop now would harm them. Maxwell looked at Connor and Caleb, then at their siblings. For a moment, he saw Catherine in their features, her determination, her hope. What would she have wanted? She had always believed in reaching out, in finding the best in others, in pushing boundaries for the greater good. There has to be oversight, Maxwell said finally. Rules, boundaries, protection for both sides. That's why they need you, Lily replied, to help establish those boundaries, to be their voice when they cannot speak for themselves, to guide the integration. The portal between the four babies pulsed, waiting. And you, Lily? Maxwell asked. What happens to you in all this? I remain the bridge, connected to them, to you, to everyone who joins the convergence. I'll help both sides understand each other. You're 12 years old. That's too much responsibility for a child. Lily smiled sadly. I stopped being just a child the moment the blue liquid touched me, but I won't be alone. You'll help me, and others will join us. The swirling lights beyond the portal moved with greater urgency now, forming patterns that somehow conveyed impatience, concern. They can't maintain the convergence field much longer without committing, Lily warned. You need to decide. Maxwell looked at his sons one last time, truly looked at them, seeing both the human infants and the ancient consciousness sharing their form. Then he made his choice. Yes, he said, but on humanity's terms, not just theirs. We go forward together, as equals, or not at all. The moment the word left his lips, the smaller portal flared brilliantly. The blue light from the babies and Lily converged into it, forming a pulsing bridge between dimensions. Through this bridge, the dancing lights began to stream, slowly at first, then in greater numbers. It begins, Lily whispered. The light intensified until Maxwell had to shield his eyes. When he could look again, they were back in his penthouse. The floating babies gently descended into his waiting arms, their eyes now a striking blue-green, alert and aware. Lily stood beside them, her appearance unchanged except for her eyes, which retained a faint blue glow around the irises. Time started again. The security team, Teresa, the FBI agents, all unfroze, looking around in confusion. What just happened? Agent Rivera demanded, her weapon half drawn. The energy readings went off the charts, then suddenly returned to normal. Maxwell looked down at his sons, all four of them, now awake and aware in a way they had never been before. They looked back at him, with eyes that held both innocence and ancient wisdom. "A new beginning," he said simply. Outside, the blue dome had disappeared from the Manhattan skyline, leaving no trace of its existence except in the thousands of photos and videos already spreading across social media. The world had witnessed something it couldn't explain, the first public contact between humanity and an extraterrestrial consciousness. Nothing would ever be the same. 3 weeks after the convergence, Maxwell sat in his home office overlooking Central Park, watching the news coverage that still dominated every channel. Conflicting reports about the nature of the phenomenon continues to spark debate among scientists, religious leaders, and government officials, a news anchor was saying. The Price Foundation's statement describes it as first contact with a non-terrestrial consciousness seeking peaceful cooperation, but skeptics claim. Maxwell muted the television with a sigh. The world was still struggling to comprehend what had happened, what was continuing to happen as the convergence proceeded under the careful oversight of the newly formed Convergence Council, comprised of scientists, ethicists, government representatives, and Maxwell himself as primary human liaison. "Mr. Price?" Teresa appeared at the door. "Dr. Chen is here with the latest development reports." "Send her in," Maxwell said, standing to greet his longtime friend and now chief medical advisor for the Convergence. Dr. Chen entered, tablet in hand, looking both exhausted and exhilarated, a common state for those working directly with the merged consciousnesses. "The results are remarkable," she said without preamble. "The first 20 children to undergo voluntary convergence are showing unprecedented neural development, language acquisition, mathematical reasoning, empathic response, all accelerated while maintaining age-appropriate emotional development." "And side effects?" Maxwell asked, ever cautious since that first dramatic day. "Minimal, some initial disorientation, sensitivity to light. The blue bioluminescence fades within 48 hours, as expected." She swiped through charts on her tablet. "The safeguards you insisted on are working. The consciousness only joins with the children gradually, allowing for natural integration." Maxwell nodded, relieved. After the initial convergence, he had established strict protocols. Only children with specific neurological conditions would be considered as candidates, only with full, informed parental consent, only under constant medical supervision, and only with the guarantee that the human consciousness remained primary, with the non-terrestrial consciousness as partner, not controller. Elena Volkov remained at large, presumably with her stolen embryonic material. International agencies were hunting her, but Maxwell suspected she had powerful backers, people who saw the convergence as a path to power rather than partnership. "And what about Lily?" he asked. Dr. Chen's expression softened. "Remarkable as always. Her ability to articulate the non-terrestrial perspective has been invaluable. Without her, I doubt we'd have made half as much progress in understanding what we're dealing with." As if summoned by her name, Lily appeared in the doorway, looking very different from the disheveled homeless child Maxwell had met in the park. Now dressed in clean jeans and a simple blue sweater, her hair neatly trimmed, she carried herself with a confidence beyond her years. The faint blue glow still outlined her irises, the permanent mark of her unique position as the bridge. "Maxwell, they're asking for you," she said. "All 4 of them." His sons, all legally his now, after expedited adoption proceedings for the abandoned twins, were developing at an astonishing rate. At 7 months old, they could focus their attention, recognize faces, and through their connection with Lily, communicate complex concepts. "Let's not keep them waiting," Maxwell replied with a smile. The nursery had been redesigned to accommodate the unique needs of 4 very special infants. Gone were the traditional cribs, replaced by specially designed pods that monitored every aspect of their development while providing the neural stimulation they required. The moment Maxwell entered, all 4 babies turned toward him with perfect synchronization. Their eyes, that striking blue-green that marked all converged children, lit up with recognition. "They've been experimenting with direct communication," Lily explained, approaching the nearest pod where Connor lay. "They want to show you." She placed her hand gently on Connor's forehead, closing her eyes in concentration. The baby reached up, tiny fingers wrapping around her thumb. A soft blue glow traveled up Lily's arm, across her shoulders and down her other arm, which she extended toward Maxwell. "Take my hand," she instructed. Maxwell did, and immediately felt a presence in his mind, not invasive but gentle, questioning. Then, to his astonishment, he heard a voice, childlike but underscored with something much older. "Father, we see you." Tears sprang to Maxwell's eyes. "Connor." "Yes, and Caleb, and Julian, and Leo." The voice was a blend of all 4, speaking as one. "We learn, we grow. Soon we speak directly." "How soon?" Maxwell asked aloud, though he understood the communication was mental. "Months, not years. Our bodies develop slowly, our minds faster. We have much to share." "What do you want me to know?" Maxwell asked, overwhelmed by this first direct contact with his sons. "Danger comes. Elena creates more vessels, without protection, without balance. The joining must be gentle, consensual. Her way brings harm to both our kinds." Maxwell's happiness vanished, replaced by cold dread. Where is she? Hidden, working. But we sense the new vessels. They suffer from forced acceleration. How do we find her? We search. The consciousness network extends. We will locate. The connection began to fade, the babies growing tired from the effort of communication. Trust Lily. She is our voice until we find our own, and she needs you as much as we do. With that, the presence withdrew. Maxwell found himself still holding Lily's hand, both of them with tears streaming down their faces. "They're incredible," Dr. Chen whispered, having witnessed the exchange. "The implications for human advancement are beyond calculation." Maxwell gently disengaged his hand from Lily's, processing what he'd learned. "We need to intensify the search for Elena. Whatever she's doing, it threatens everything we're trying to build." "I've been thinking about that," Lily said, her voice shifting slightly to that older, wiser tone that emerged when she channeled her connection to the non-terrestrial consciousness. The embryonic material she stole, it would require specialized facilities to maintain and develop, advanced medical equipment, secure location, multiple staff. "That narrows it down," Maxwell agreed, "but still leaves too many possibilities." "Not if we follow the neural catalyst," Lily continued. "The blue substance has a unique energy signature. If we could develop a detection system calibrated to that specific frequency." Dr. Chen was already typing notes into her tablet. "Possible. We'd need to modify satellite imaging systems, create a specialized algorithm to filter out false positives." "Do it," Maxwell ordered. "Whatever resources you need." As Dr. Chen left to begin the work, Maxwell turned to Lily. They hadn't had much time for private conversation in the chaos of the past weeks. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. Lily shrugged, suddenly looking more like the 12-year-old she was. "It's weird. Sometimes I feel like me, just Lily. Other times I feel bigger, like I can see things others can't. That's a lot to handle at your age." "Better than living on the streets," she said, with a hint of her old defensive humor. Then, more seriously, "I feel like I have a purpose now. Like I'm supposed to be here, doing this." Maxwell had made arrangements for Lily to live with them, obtaining emergency guardianship while her permanent legal status was determined. The child welfare system, faced with the extraordinary circumstances, had been surprisingly accommodating, perhaps influenced by Maxwell's considerable resources and newfound international prominence. "You know," he said, "regardless of all this convergence business, you're welcome here for as long as you want to stay, not just as the bridge, but as Lily." Her eyes brightened, the green more prominent than the blue for a moment. "Really? Really?" In fact, Maxwell hesitated, then decided to take the leap. "I've been thinking about making it more permanent, if you'd be open to it." "You mean like adoption?" Lily asked, her voice small. "Exactly like adoption, but only if you want that. No pressure." Lily looked at the four babies, each watching the conversation with unusual intensity for their age, then back at Maxwell. "I'd like that, a lot." For the first time since Catherine's death, Maxwell felt something like genuine happiness, not just purpose or determination, but actual joy. His family had expanded in ways he could never have imagined 3 weeks ago. 4 extraordinary sons, and now, potentially, a daughter who was remarkable in her own right. But the moment of happiness was tempered by the warning from his sons. Elena Volkov was still out there, conducting unsanctioned convergences, potentially causing harm to both species involved. And beyond her, Maxwell knew other threats were gathering. Government agencies interested in weaponizing the non-terrestrial consciousness, religious extremists denouncing the convergence as demonic possession, corporations eager to exploit the advanced knowledge for profit. The world was changing faster than anyone could have predicted, and Maxwell Price found himself at the center of that change, responsible not just for the future of his unusual family, but potentially for the course of human evolution itself. As he stood in the nursery, watching his extraordinary sons and the equally extraordinary girl who had brought them all together, Maxwell made a silent vow to protect them, to guide the convergence toward beneficial cooperation rather than exploitation, and to honor Catherine's memory by ensuring that this new chapter in human history would be written with compassion and wisdom. The babies, as if sensing his thoughts, cooed in unison, a sound that somehow conveyed both infant innocence and ancient approval. "The detection grid is online," Dr. Chen announced, entering Maxwell's office without knocking, a sign of how their professional relationship had evolved in the 2 months since the convergence. Maxwell looked up from reviewing the latest proposals from the International Scientific Consortium. "Any hits?" 3 potential locations with the neural catalyst signature. Dr. Chen laid a tablet on his desk, displaying a world map with glowing markers. 1 in northern Russia, 1 in Indonesia, and 1 much closer, upstate New York. D. Celestial Heights was destroyed. Maxwell frowned, studying the 3rd marker. Not Celestial Heights. About 60 miles north in the Adirondacks, a private medical facility officially listed as a rehabilitation center for neurological disorders. Owned by a shell corporation that traces back to Meridian Biosciences. Maxwell's expression darkened. Lawrence Meridian. I should have known he'd be involved. Meridian was Maxwell's longtime business rival, known for his ruthless pursuit of profitable medical innovations, regardless of ethical considerations. While Price Pharmaceuticals focused on treatments for rare diseases and long-term research, Meridian Biosciences specialized in high-margin drugs and had been investigated multiple times for cutting corners in clinical trials. "We should notify the Convergence Council immediately," Dr. Chen suggested. Maxwell shook his head. "Not yet. The council is still too fractured, too political. Information leaks would compromise any operation." He stood up. "We need more intelligence first, concrete evidence of what's happening there." "How do you propose we get that?" Before Maxwell could answer, Lily appeared in the doorway. At 13 now, she'd had a birthday the previous week. She carried herself with increasing confidence, though moments of typical teenage awkwardness still broke through the mature facade imposed by her role as the bridge. "The the boys are asking for you," she said. Since the convergence, Maxwell had been trying to ensure the infants were referred to as children, not vessels or subjects. They were developing their own personalities, despite their shared connection to the non-terrestrial consciousness. In the 3 months since that first communication, the quadruplets had made astonishing progress. Though their physical development remained roughly normal for their age, they could sit up now, but not yet crawl. Their cognitive abilities had advanced exponentially. Through Lily, they could communicate complex thoughts, and they were beginning to make sounds that approximated words. "We were just discussing the Meridian situation," Maxwell explained, as they walked to the nursery. Lily nodded solemnly. "They know. That's why they want to talk to you." The nursery had been redesigned again as the boys' abilities evolved. The monitoring pods remained, but now the room also featured interactive projection systems that responded to the infants' gaze patterns, allowing them to communicate through visual selection when Lily wasn't present to bridge their thoughts directly. All 4 babies were awake and alert, their blue-green eyes tracking Maxwell as he entered. Through extensive genetic testing, they had confirmed that Connor and Caleb were indeed Maxwell's biological sons, while Julian and Leo, names chosen to give them their own identities, shared Catherine's DNA but had different paternal genetics. The mystery of their biological father remained unsolved, though Maxwell had his suspicions that Eleanor had used genetic material from a non-human source, modified to appear human. Lily took her usual position between the 4 cribs, placing a hand on Julian's forehead. The familiar blue glow traveled up her arm as she established the connection. "They have something to show you," she said, extending her other hand to Maxwell. The moment their fingers touched, Maxwell was no longer in the nursery. Instead, he found himself, or rather, his consciousness, floating above a facility nestled in dense forest. The perspective shifted, zooming closer, passing through walls as if they were mist. Inside, he saw laboratories filled with specialized equipment, medical staff in isolation gear, and row upon row of incubators. Each contained a developing infant, connected to monitoring devices and IV lines filled with the familiar blue liquid. 57 vessels, came the collective voice of his sons, created without consent. Developed too rapidly, the joining is forced, not invited. The vision shifted to show Elena Volkov conferring with a tall, distinguished man Maxwell immediately recognized as Lawrence Meridian. They stood before a holographic display showing the neural patterns of the infants, comparing data. "Acceleration is working," Elena was saying, her voice somehow perfectly audible in this vision. "The vessels will be ready within weeks rather than months." "And the consciousness integration?" Meridian asked. "Proceeding, though with more resistance than anticipated. We're increasing the neural catalyst dosage." "Very dangerous," his son's voice commented. "The human component suffers. The non-terrestrial consciousness cannot integrate properly when forced. Both are damaged." "Who is providing the non-terrestrial consciousness?" Maxwell asked within the vision. "Your people agreed to halt all new convergences outside our protocols." "Nadir, not all consciousnesses agree with the collective. Some are impatient, willing to risk harm for faster embodiment. They break the harmony. And Meridian has provided something else, a way to direct the integrated consciousness, to control it through chemical means." The vision shifted again, showing infants whose eyes glowed not blue-green, but a harsh artificial purple. Their movements were jerky, unnatural. "Weapons," his sons explained. "They seek to create weapons." vessels with the knowledge and power of the non-terrestrial consciousness, but controlled by human masters. The horror of what Maxwell was witnessing struck him deeply. Not just the exploitation of innocent human lives, children created solely for this purpose, but also the corruption of the convergence itself, the transformation of what should be a symbiotic partnership into a tool for power and destruction. And the vision faded, and Maxwell found himself back in the nursery, still holding Lily's hand. Her expression mirrored his own horror and determination. "We have to stop them," she said. "We will," Maxwell promised, "but we need to be careful. Meridian has powerful connections in government and military circles. And Elena Volkov knows more about the neural catalyst than anyone, except perhaps you and the boys." He turned to Dr. Chen. "Prepare a secure briefing for select members of the Convergence Council, only those we trust completely. And I want our security team ready for a possible intervention." "You're not planning to attack the facility, Doctor?" Chen asked, alarmed. "Not attack, rescue." Maxwell looked at his sons, each watching him with those knowing eyes. Those children deserve the same protections, the same chance at balanced development that we've given our boys. And the non-terrestrial consciousnesses being exploited need to be freed from whatever control mechanisms Meridian and Volkov have implemented. "It won't be easy," Lily warned. "The facility has advanced security, and Elena has been developing countermeasures against our abilities specifically." "That's why we won't go in directly," Maxwell said, a plan already forming. "Meridian doesn't know we've located him. We'll use that advantage." Over the next week, Maxwell deployed his considerable resources toward infiltrating Meridian Biosciences. Loyal employees were placed as maintenance contractors at the Adirondack facility. Satellite surveillance was enhanced. Financial transactions were traced, revealing a disturbing network of black market medical suppliers and mercenary security personnel. The full picture that emerged was even worse than the vision had suggested. Meridian wasn't just developing controlled convergence children. He was preparing to auction them to the highest bidders, governments seeking enhanced intelligence assets, corporations wanting vessels for industrial espionage, even wealthy individuals desiring custom-enhanced children as status symbols. The auction was scheduled for exactly 1 week away. "We need to move now," Maxwell told the core team he'd assembled in his secure conference room, "before those children can be sold like commodities." The plan they'd developed was risky but comprehensive. A coordinated raid involving trusted members of federal law enforcement who had been carefully vetted by Lily for their ethical standards, backed by medical teams prepared to care for the infants, and supported by legal experts ready to document every violation for prosecution. What Maxwell hadn't told the team was the role his sons would play. Through Lily, they had explained their ability to temporarily disrupt the forced convergence control mechanisms Volkov had implemented, but only if they were physically present at the facility. "It's too dangerous," Maxwell had argued. "Maxwell, you're still infants physically, regardless of your advanced consciousness." Necessary risk, they had insisted. No other way to free them safely. Now, the night before the operation, Maxwell sat in the nursery, watching his 4 sons sleep. The thought of putting them in danger tore at him, but the alternative, leaving 57 children in the hands of those who would exploit and abuse them, was unthinkable. Lily entered silently, taking a seat beside him. At 13, with her unique abilities and experiences, she straddled the line between child and something else entirely, not quite adult, but wise beyond her years. "They'll be okay," she said softly. "I'll protect them. We all will." Maxwell nodded, trusting her in a way he'd never expected to trust a teenager. "I know. I never imagined fatherhood would involve decisions like this. Most fathers don't have to help their babies save the world," Lily agreed with a small smile. Then, more seriously, "This is just the beginning, you know. Meridian and Volkov aren't the only ones who will try to exploit the convergence. "One battle at a time," Maxwell said, reaching over to squeeze her hand gratefully. As dawn broke over New York City, Operation Sanctuary began. Maxwell's private jet carried a small team including himself, Lily, Dr. Chen, and the 4 specially designed transport pods containing his sons to a private airfield near the target facility. There they met the federal task force that would execute the official raid. Everything was in place, everything was ready. And yet, Maxwell couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very, very wrong. The Adirondack facility looked deceptively peaceful, nestled among pine trees, with the morning sun glinting off its glass exterior. From the command vehicle parked a mile away, Maxwell watched the surveillance feeds with growing tension. "Alpha Team in position," came the report through the secure channel, awaiting final authorization. Maxwell looked at Lily, who sat cross-legged on the floor of the vehicle, eyes closed, one hand resting on each of the 4 transport pods containing his sons. A faint blue glow outlined her entire body as she maintained the connection between them. "They're ready," she said, without opening her eyes. "The moment we're inside, they can begin disrupting the control network." Maxwell gave the signal. "Operation Sanctuary is a go. Remember, the primary objective is the safety of the infants. Apprehending Volkov and Meridian is secondary." The raid proceeded with military precision. Security systems were disabled simultaneously from multiple access points. The outer perimeter was secured within minutes, but as the teams breached the main building, the first sign of trouble appeared. "Sir, we're encountering resistance," reported the Alpha Team leader, "security personnel with unusual capabilities." On the surveillance feed, Maxwell watched in horror as what appeared to be teenagers, no more than 15 or 16 years old, engaged the tactical team with inhuman speed and coordination. Their eyes glowed purple, just as he'd seen in the vision. "Earlier prototypes," Lily gasped, her connection with the quadruplets allowing her to understand what they were seeing. Forced convergence from previous experiments. They're being controlled remotely. "Can your connection help them?" Maxwell asked urgently. "We need to get closer," Lily replied. "The boys can disrupt the control signals, but only within a certain range." The decision was immediate. "Move us in," Maxwell ordered the driver. The command vehicle lurched forward, approaching the facility under the protection of the tactical teams that had secured the outer areas. They stopped at the loading dock, now controlled by friendly forces. "Stay close to me," Maxwell instructed Lily as they prepared to enter. The transport pods were loaded onto a specialized cart designed for rapid movement through the facility. Dr. Chen and 2 trusted medical technicians accompanied them, along with 4 heavily armed security personnel from Maxwell's private team. Inside, the facility was a maze of sterile corridors and secured laboratories. The sounds of the ongoing operation echoed through the building, commands shouted, doors being breached, the occasional burst of weapons fire. "This way," Lily said with certainty, guiding them toward what she sensed was the central nursery. As they rounded a corner, they encountered 2 of the enhanced teenagers. Up close, they were even more disturbing, their movements mechanical, their purple glowing eyes vacant despite their focused attacks. Before Maxwell's security team could react, the teenagers moved with blurring speed toward the transport pods. "Now!" Lily shouted, dropping to her knees beside the pods and placing her hands on 2 of them. A pulse of blue energy erupted from the quadruplets, spreading outward in a visible wave. When it reached the attacking teenagers, they staggered, their purple eyes flickering. Confusion crossed their faces, followed by pain, then recognition. "Help! Us!" One managed to gasp before collapsing. Dr. Chen rushed forward to check their vitals. "They're alive, stable, but whatever was controlling them has been disrupted. They need medical attention," Maxwell ordered. "Get them to the evacuation point." They pressed on, encountering two more groups of the controlled teenagers. Each time, the quadruplet's energy pulse freed them from whatever force was directing their actions. But Maxwell could see the effort was taxing on his sons. Their vital signs fluctuated with each pulse, their tiny bodies struggling with the enormous energy they were channeling. Finally, they reached the central nursery, a vast, circular chamber filled with rows of specialized incubators. Each contained an infant, connected to IV lines of glowing blue liquid and monitoring equipment that blinked with purple light. Medical staff, apparently unaware of the raid in progress, continued their work until the doors burst open. "Federal agents! Hands where we can see them!" shouted the tactical team leader as his personnel secured the room. The medical staff complied immediately, most looking relieved rather than resistant. Maxwell realized they were likely ordinary doctors and nurses, perhaps unaware of the full nature of what they were participating in. "Find Volkov and Meridian," he ordered the security team, while Dr. Chen began assessing the condition of the infants. "These children are in distress," she reported grimly. "The neural catalyst has been administered at nearly triple the safe dosage, and these monitoring systems, they're not just measuring neural activity, they're manipulating it." Lily approached the nearest incubator, placing her hand against the clear surface. The infant inside reacted immediately, its purple-tinged eyes focusing on her with desperate intensity. "They're trapped," she whispered. "The human consciousness and the non-terrestrial, both trapped by the control protocols. Neither can fully express or connect properly." "Can we help them?" Maxwell asked. Lily looked at the quadruplets in their transport pods. "Yes, but it will take all their strength, and mine. We need to remove the control devices first." Dr. Chen examined the monitoring systems. "These neural interfaces are integrated with their developing brains. We can't just remove them without risking permanent damage." "Then we need to reconfigure them," Maxwell decided. "Override Volkov's protocols with the safe integration parameters we developed for our boys." As the medical team began the delicate process of reprogramming the equipment, an alarm blared throughout the facility. "Perimeter breach in Section D," reported one of the tactical team members. "Unknown number of hostiles entering from the emergency evacuation tunnels." "Meridian's insurance policy," Maxwell guessed. "Probably mercenaries hired to extract the children if the facility was compromised." "Sir," the team leader approached urgently, "we need to accelerate evacuation. Hostile forces are moving toward this position." Maxwell looked at the 57 infants in their incubators. Moving them would take time they didn't have. Leaving them behind was unthinkable. "Lily," he said, turning to the girl who had become so integral to his family, "what do the boys say? Can they help all of these children at once?" Lily closed her eyes, communing with the quadruplets. When she opened them again, determination shone through the blue glow. "They can, but at great risk to themselves. It would require channeling far more energy than they've ever attempted. Ask them if they're willing to try." Another moment of silent communication, then Lily nodded. "They say it's why they came, to help their kind, both kinds." The sound of gunfire grew closer. Whatever decision they made had to be now. "Do it," Maxwell ordered. "Security team, defensive positions. Medical team, prepare for rapid evacuation the moment the control systems are neutralized." Lily positioned herself between the 4 transport pods, touching each one. The quadruplets began to glow with intense blue light, their tiny bodies rising slightly within their protective environments. The energy built, flowing through Lily, intensifying until the air itself seemed to vibrate with power. "Everyone stand back," she warned, her voice resonating with harmonics not entirely human. The blue energy erupted from Lily in a massive pulse, expanding outward to touch each of the 57 incubators simultaneously. The control equipment sparked and failed as the wave passed through it. The purple glow in the infant's eyes shifted, flickering between purple and blue before stabilizing into the same blue-green that characterized Maxwell's sons. For a moment, absolute silence fell across the nursery. Then, as one, all 61 infants, the quadruplets and the rescued children, opened their eyes fully and began to cry. Not the mechanical wailing they had been producing under control, but genuine human infant cries. "It worked," Dr. Chen breathed, checking the nearest incubator. "The forced controls are down. Their neural patterns are stabilizing." Lily swayed on her feet, exhausted by the channeling effort. Maxwell caught her before she could fall. "You did it," he told her proudly. "We all did," she corrected, smiling weakly, "but we need to move quickly. They're coming." As if on cue, an explosion rocked the far side of the nursery. Through the smoke strode Elena Volkov, flanked by more of the enhanced teenagers with purple glowing eyes. "Maxwell Price," she said coldly. "Always interfering with progress." "Progress," Maxwell replied, positioning himself between Volkov and the children. "You call exploitation and abuse progress?" "Evolution requires sacrifice," Volkov replied. "These children are the future, a future you're too afraid to embrace. A controlled future. Slaves to whoever holds the neural leash you've designed?" Volkov smiled thinly. "A necessary phase. Order before freedom, structure before chaos." Behind her appeared Lawrence Meridian, immaculate in an expensive suit, despite the chaos around them. "Enough philosophy, Elena. Secure the primary specimens and initiate Protocol Omega." Maxwell's security team had their weapons trained on the newcomers, but Volkov's enhanced teenagers moved too quickly to target effectively. Two of them reached for the quadruplets' transport pods. "Stop them!" Maxwell shouted. But before anyone could react, another pulse of blue energy emanated from the four brothers, gentler this time, but precisely targeted. When it reached the controlled teenagers, they froze, then slowly lowered their hands. "We will not." "Obey," one of them said haltingly, fighting against whatever force had been controlling him. Fury contorted Volkov's face. "Impossible. The neural suppressant should prevent any independent action." "You never understood the true nature of the convergence," Lily said, stepping forward despite her exhaustion. "It's not about control. It's about harmony, balance, partnership." As she spoke, the blue energy spread from the quadruplets to the rescued infants, then to the controlled teenagers, creating a network of pulsing light that filled the nursery. Through this network, a chorus of voices spoke, old and young, human and other, blended into a unified whole. The convergence cannot be forced or controlled. It must be chosen, embraced by both consciousnesses, willingly. Meridian, sensing the situation slipping from his grasp, pulled a device from his pocket, a small remote with a single red button. "Protocol Omega. If we can't control them, no one will." Maxwell lunged for him, but one of the formerly controlled teenagers moved faster, knocking the device from Meridian's hand before he could activate it. Federal agents swarmed in, securing both Volkov and Meridian. The raid had succeeded, though not exactly as planned. The 57 children were safe, the control mechanisms neutralized. But the implications of what had happened here would echo far beyond this facility. As medical teams began the careful process of preparing the rescued infants for transport, Maxwell knelt beside the quadruplets' pods, checking on his sons. They appeared exhausted but stable, their tiny faces peaceful now that the crisis had passed. "They did something remarkable today," Lily said softly, joining him. "They showed everyone what the convergence is truly meant to be. Not domination by either species, but a partnership that makes both stronger." Maxwell nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "They're changing the world, one mind at a time. And so are you," Lily added. "By choosing to protect rather than exploit, to understand rather than control." As they prepared to leave the facility, Maxwell gazed at the rows of rescued infants, 57 new lives who would now have the chance to develop naturally, their dual consciousnesses finding harmony rather than conflict. Each represented both a responsibility and a hope for the future. The world was changing. The convergence was just the beginning. And somehow, impossibly, Maxwell Price, once merely a billionaire pharmaceutical executive mourning his wife, now stood at the center of humanity's greatest evolutionary leap. The World Health Organization has officially recognized the Convergence Protocol established by the Price Foundation as the global standard for all integration procedures, the newscaster announced. This comes after 6 months of intensive international debate following the Adirondack rescue, which revealed unauthorized experimentation with forced neural integration. Maxwell muted the television in his office, turning to face the Convergence Council members gathered around his conference table. In the months since the raid on Meridian's facility, the Council had expanded to include representatives from 32 countries, all working to establish ethical guidelines for what had become the most significant development in human history. The legal proceedings against Meridian and Volkov begin next week, reported Councilwoman Santos, a former Brazilian Supreme Court justice. The evidence is overwhelming, but their defense team is arguing that they were working toward the same goals as us, just through different methods. Different methods that caused irreparable harm to dozens of children, Dr. Chen countered sharply. She had personally overseen the rehabilitation of the rescued infants, many of whom still struggled with the after-effects of forced convergence. "How are the Adirondack children progressing?" asked Dr. Nkosi, the South African neurologist who had joined the council after developing innovative therapies for integration trauma. "Better than expected," Maxwell answered. 70% have achieved stable integration patterns. The remaining 30% continue to show improvement under the modified protocol. What he didn't mention was the personal toll the rescue operation had taken. The quadruplets, now approaching their first birthday, had exhausted themselves during the energy channeling, requiring weeks of careful monitoring before they fully recovered. And Lily. Maxwell glanced at the empty chair where she normally sat during council meetings. At 13, she remained the most effective bridge between human and non-terrestrial consciousness, but the strain of maintaining that connection for so many children had left its mark. She tired more easily now, and sometimes retreated into herself for hours, communing with what she called the collective consciousness in ways she couldn't fully explain to others. The meeting continued, addressing the growing global demand for approved convergence procedures. With demonstrated benefits for children with certain neurological conditions, parents worldwide were seeking integration for their children. But the process required both specially trained medical teams and willing non-terrestrial consciousnesses, both in limited supply. "We need to expand training programs," urged Dr. Takahashi, the Japanese neurosurgeon who had pioneered safer integration techniques. "Every major hospital should have at least one qualified integration specialist. And we need better screening protocols," added Councilman Adeyemi from Nigeria. "Not all children are suitable candidates, regardless of their medical conditions. The neural compatibility factors are still poorly understood." Maxwell listened to the debate, marveling at how quickly the world had adapted to a reality that would have seemed like science fiction a year ago. The initial panic and conspiracy theories had gradually given way to cautious acceptance as the benefits became clear. Children once trapped in non-responsive bodies, finding voices and connections. New treatments for previously intractable neurological conditions, advances in understanding consciousness itself. But with acceptance came new challenges. Religious objections persisted in many regions. Exploitation attempts continued despite international prohibitions. And the non-terrestrial consciousness itself was evolving as more of its members integrated with human hosts, developing perspectives and desires that sometimes diverged from the original collective. The council meeting adjourned after setting the agenda for the upcoming United Nations special session on convergence regulation. As the members filed out, Dr. Chen lingered behind. "You seem distracted today," she observed once they were alone. "I'm concerned about Lily," Maxwell admitted. "She's withdrawing more and more. The boys say she's expanding her connection to the collective, but I worry about the human side of her, the 13-year-old girl who deserves a normal adolescence." Dr. Chen nodded sympathetically. "It's a valid concern. Her neural patterns have been changing more rapidly in recent weeks. The integration is progressing at an accelerated rate compared to the children." "Is it dangerous?" Maxwell asked, the fear he'd been suppressing finally surfacing. "Not physically, no, but psychologically. We're in uncharted territory. No one has integrated as deeply as Lily while still maintaining their original human consciousness. She's creating a new path with every step." Before Maxwell could respond, his private phone chimed with a message from Teresa. "Boys asking for you. Urgent." "I have to go," he told Dr. Chen, already heading for the door. In the year since the initial convergence, the nursery had evolved into what the staff now called the Nexus, a specially designed environment that supported both the quadruplets' physical development and their unique neurological needs. Interactive surfaces responded to their thoughts, conveyed through subtle neural interfaces developed as safer alternatives to Volkov's invasive systems. At 14 months old, the boys were developing physically at a normal rate. They could crawl now, and Connor had recently taken his first tentative steps. Cognitively, they remained far beyond their peers, communicating complex concepts through a combination of rudimentary speech, the thought-responsive interfaces, and their connection with Lily. When Maxwell entered the Nexus, all four turned to him with identical expressions of concern. "Dada," Connor said aloud, one of the few spoken words they used regularly, but through the interface, more complex communication appeared on the surrounding screens. "Lily in danger. Connection changing. She travels too deep." "What do you mean?" Maxwell asked, kneeling beside them. "Where is she?" "Her room. Physical body present. Consciousness expanding beyond safe parameters." Maxwell didn't wait to hear more. He rushed to Lily's suite, where she often retreated for privacy during her deeper communion sessions with the collective consciousness. He found her sitting cross-legged on her bed, eyes closed, surrounded by a blue aura so intense it illuminated the entire room. Her body was rigid, barely breathing. "Lily," he called, approaching cautiously. "Lily, can you hear me?" No response. The blue glow pulsed, growing stronger. Maxwell touched her shoulder gently. The moment his fingers made contact, a surge of energy traveled through him, not painful but overwhelming. Images flooded his mind. Stars, planets, vast networks of consciousness spanning distances beyond comprehension. And somewhere within that cosmic web, Lily's consciousness, stretching thinner and thinner as it expanded outward. Too far came the voice of his sons, somehow present in this vision. She cannot maintain cohesion. The human element dissolves. Understanding hit Maxwell with terrifying clarity. Lily wasn't just communicating with the collective consciousness, she was merging with it, losing her individual human identity in the process. "Lily!" he called into the void of stars and light. "Lily, come back!" A flicker of recognition, a momentary coalescence of the scattered energy. "Maxwell." "Yes, follow my voice, come back to us." "So beautiful here, so vast. I can see everything." "I know," Maxwell said gently, "but you're not ready to stay there yet. The boys need you. I need you. They're calling me, offering everything. And they'll still be there later. But right now, you're 13 years old with chocolate ice cream in the freezer and that book series you haven't finished reading. You're Lily before you're the bridge. The scattered energy began to pull together, condensing slowly. Hard to remember who I was before. I remember, Maxwell assured her. The brave girl who helped abandon babies in the park, who faced down Elena Volkov, who became part of our family. That last word seemed to resonate through the cosmic vision. Family. Yes. Come home to your family, Lily. The blue energy collapsed inward, rapidly condensing until Maxwell found himself back in Lily's bedroom, his hand still on her shoulder. The intense glow faded, and she slumped forward into his arms, exhausted but present. "Maxwell," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I'm here. You're safe." Her eyes opened. The blue glow dimmed to the faintest ring around her natural green. "I almost didn't come back. They showed me everything, the entire history of their civilization, their journey here, their hopes for what we could become together." "It was too much too fast," Maxwell said, helping her lie down on the bed. "Your mind isn't ready for that level of integration." "But it felt so right," she insisted weakly, "like I was finally understanding my purpose." "Your purpose isn't just to be their bridge, Lily. It's to be yourself, to grow up, to experience life as a human before you decide how much of the collective to embrace." She was quiet for a moment, processing this. "The boys called you, didn't they?" "They were worried. We all were." Lily turned away, her expression troubled. "They don't understand. They have each other. 4 bodies, 4 perspectives, all connected. I'm alone." Maxwell sat beside her on the bed. "You're not alone. You have us. And you have yourself, your human self." "But for how long?" she asked, and the vulnerability in her voice reminded Maxwell sharply of her actual age. A teenager, despite her extraordinary role. "The integration is accelerating. Every time I connect with the collective, it gets harder to remember where they end and I begin." Maxwell had faced many challenges since the convergence began, political, scientific, ethical, but none had prepared him for helping an adolescent navigate an unprecedented transformation of consciousness. "Then we set boundaries," he said finally. "Scheduled connection times, monitored integration depth, and most importantly, dedicated human time, where you're just Lily doing normal teenage things." "Normal?" She gave a small, sad laugh. "I don't even know what that means anymore." "We'll figure it out together," Maxwell promised. "Starting with that chocolate ice cream I mentioned. And maybe a movie that has nothing whatsoever to do with cosmic consciousness or world-changing revelations." A tiny smile touched her lips. "That actually sounds nice." As Lily rested, Maxwell returned to the nexus where his sons waited expectantly. "She's safe," he told them. "But we need to develop better protocols for deep connection sessions. Her human consciousness needs protection." Through their interface they responded, "We understand. Balance required. Human needs with collective knowledge. We will help monitor." Maxwell studied his extraordinary children, 4 infants with the wisdom of an ancient species, yet still learning to walk, still needing diapers changed, still requiring the fundamental care of any human child. Like Lily, they existed at the intersection of 2 worlds. Unlike Lily, they had been born to this dual existence, never knowing a purely human perspective. This made them uniquely suited to their role as the first generation of integrated consciousness, but also created challenges no parenting book had ever addressed. As Maxwell helped Connor stand, supporting his wobbly legs as the boy attempted another step, he reflected on how fundamentally the convergence had transformed his understanding of family, of humanity itself. What began as a strange encounter in Central Park had become a new chapter in human evolution, And somehow, improbably, Maxwell Price, a man who had lost everything when Catherine died, now found himself responsible for guiding not just his unique children, but potentially the future course of two species evolving together. Connor took a successful step, then another, his tiny face lighting up with very human pride. His brothers watched with equally human excitement, clapping their hands and cooing encouragement. In these moments, Maxwell could see the beautiful possibility the convergence offered, not the replacement of humanity, but its enhancement. Wisdom and knowledge joined with the joy, love and wonder that made human experience so precious. That balance between cosmic consciousness and human emotion, between ancient knowledge and childlike discovery, would be their greatest challenge and their greatest opportunity in the months and years ahead. 1 year after the Adirondack rescue, Maxwell stood on the stage of the United Nations General Assembly, preparing to address representatives from every nation on Earth. Behind him sat the expanded Convergence Council, now including members from 48 countries. Beside him stood Lily, poised and composed despite the magnitude of the occasion. At 14, she had grown taller, her childhood features maturing toward adulthood. The blue glow in her eyes had stabilized, still present but controlled, a reminder of her unique status without overwhelming her human appearance. The integration protocols they developed had helped her find balance, maintaining her individual identity while still serving as the primary bridge. "Distinguished representatives," Maxwell began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "1 year ago, humanity faced an unprecedented moment in our evolution, contact with a non-terrestrial consciousness seeking not conquest or domination, but partnership. Today, I stand before you to present the first Convergence Progress Report, documenting both our achievements and our challenges." As he spoke, images appeared on the massive screens behind him. Children whose lives had been transformed by consensual integration. Medical breakthroughs developed using knowledge shared by the non-terrestrial consciousness, the global network of convergence centers providing safe, ethical integration services. "We have now successfully facilitated 1,187 consensual integrations worldwide," Maxwell continued. "Each represents a partnership between human and non-terrestrial consciousness, enriching both. The medical benefits alone have transformed our understanding of neurological conditions once considered untreatable." He didn't mention the ongoing challenges, the black market for neural catalyst that had emerged despite international prohibitions, the religious extremists who had bombed a convergence center in Oslo 3 months earlier, the continuing debate over whether integrated children should be treated as a separate legal category, with specialized rights and protections. Those discussions would come later, in closed sessions with world leaders. Today was about celebrating progress and building continued support for the carefully managed convergence process. "And now," Maxwell said, "I would like to introduce someone who embodies the promise of the convergence more than anyone. Many of you know her as the Bridge, but she is also a 14-year-old girl named Lily Price who has agreed to share her unique perspective." He stepped aside, allowing Lily to take the podium. The assembly hall fell silent as she adjusted the microphone. "Hello," she began, her voice steady despite the billions watching worldwide. "My name is Lily, and for the past year I've been living between two worlds, the human world I was born into and the vast collective consciousness that reached across the stars to find us." As she spoke, Maxwell marveled at her poise. Despite her extraordinary abilities, she had indeed found ways to experience normal adolescence, attending a specialized school program, developing friendships with both integrated and non-integrated peers, arguing with Maxwell about ordinary teenage concerns like social media access and curfews. The adoption had been finalized 6 months earlier, giving her the legal protection of family as well as the emotional connection. What I've learned from this experience, Lily continued, is that consciousness, whether human or non-terrestrial, shares fundamental qualities: the desire to connect, to understand, to grow. The capacity for wonder, for compassion, for love. These aren't uniquely human traits, but universal ones. The assembly listened rapt as she explained, in terms even non-specialists could understand, the nature of the partnership developing between the two species. She addressed fears directly, acknowledging legitimate concerns while dispelling misinformation. And she spoke candidly about her own journey, the challenges of maintaining her human identity while embracing an expanded consciousness. As she concluded her address, Lily gestured toward the back of the stage, where Teresa appeared pushing a specialized stroller containing the quadruplets. At 2 years old, they had begun speaking incomplete sentences, precocious but not impossibly so for their physical age. Their dual consciousness remained their secret advantage, visible only in their unusually perceptive expressions and the faint blue-green glow that occasionally appeared in their eyes during moments of deep concentration. "These are my brothers," Lily said with genuine affection, "the first children of the convergence. They represent what's possible when we approach this evolutionary step with care, ethics, and love. They are fully human and something more, not lesser for their difference, not greater, just beautifully, wonderfully unique." The assembly rose in applause as Maxwell joined Lily at the podium, the quadruplets waving cheerfully from their stroller, clearly enjoying the attention. For a moment, they appeared to be simply a father with his 5 children, a family unconventional in its formation, but genuine in its bonds. Later, at the reception following the address, Maxwell stood to the side, watching as Lily conversed with world leaders with remarkable sophistication while still slipping away occasionally to check her phone like any teenager. The boys were being admired by a group of diplomats, demonstrating their precocious vocabulary while still engaging in typical toddler behavior. Connor trying to escape the stroller, Leo reaching for a plate of cookies just beyond his grasp. "Quite the family you've assembled," came a voice beside him. Maxwell turned to find UN Secretary General Amara beside him, her expression thoughtful. "Not exactly how I plan to expand my family," Maxwell acknowledged with a smile, "but I wouldn't change it." "They represent hope," the Secretary General observed, "in a world that desperately needs it." Maxwell nodded, watching as Lily laughed at something the French president had said, a genuine teenage laugh breaking through her formal demeanor. "Balance is the key," he said, "finding a way forward that honors both what we are and what we might become." "And the resistance?" the Secretary General asked more quietly. "The reports of separatist movements, the threats against integrated children." Maxwell's expression sobered. "Every evolutionary step faces resistance. We continue to build safeguards, to engage with legitimate concerns, to distinguish between fear and hatred. And Volkov? There are rumors she escaped custody during transport." "We're aware," Maxwell confirmed grimly. This had been his greatest concern in recent weeks, intelligence suggesting Elena Volkov had indeed escaped and was gathering resources to continue her work outside regulated channels. "The Convergence Council has enhanced security at all integration centers, and we're working with international agencies to locate her." Their conversation was interrupted as Lily approached, her expression serious despite the celebratory atmosphere. "The boys need to speak with you," she said quietly. "All of them. Together." Maxwell excused himself, following Lily to a private antechamber where Teresa had brought the quadruplets. The moment the door closed behind them, all 4 toddlers turned to him with identical intense expressions. "She's moving," Connor said aloud, his vocabulary advanced but his pronunciation still childishly imperfect. But through Lily, their more complex thoughts flowed. "Elena Volkov has reached the secondary facility." The forced convergence protocols have restarted. New vessels are being prepared. Where? Maxwell asked sharply. Remote, shielded from normal detection. But we can sense the distress of the forced joinings. South America, Lily added. The Amazon basin. They're showing me images, a facility built into the side of a mountain, disguised as a mining operation. Maxwell processed this information quickly. How many children? 23 vessels in early development stages. The neural catalyst has been modified, harder to detect, faster acting. She's learning from her mistakes, Maxwell noted grimly, making it harder to find her, harder to stop her. There is more, the boys continued through Lily. Volkov is not working alone. She has new allies, those who see forced convergence as a path to power. Meridian's buyers, Maxwell guessed. The ones who were planning to purchase the Adirondack children. Yes, but also others. Some who fear the convergence wish to control it. Some who claim to oppose it seek to weaponize it. Divisions grow. The implications were clear and troubling. Despite a year of progress, the fundamental tensions remained. Those who wanted to exploit the convergence, those who feared it, and those who sought to nurture it as a positive evolutionary development. We need to convene an emergency session of the Security Council, Maxwell decided. Present what we know, coordinate an international response. There's something else, Lily said hesitantly. Something the boys aren't telling you directly. Maxwell looked at his sons, noting a subtle change in their expressions, a wariness, an uncertainty. What is it? Lily took a deep breath. The collective consciousness is divided too. Most support the regulated, consensual approach we've developed, but a growing faction, they call themselves the accelerationists, believe integration is proceeding too slowly. They're beginning to see Volkov's methods as justified by the end result. Are they actively helping her? Maxwell asked, alarmed by this new complication. Not yet. But they're considering it, debating internally. And our boys, where do they stand? All four toddlers reached for Maxwell's hands, their touch conveying reassurance before Lily translated their thoughts. We stand with balance, with consent, with the path that honors both human and non-terrestrial needs. But we are young voices in an ancient chorus. The debate continues. Maxwell knelt to eye level with his sons. We've come too far to let either side, human or non-terrestrial, derail what we've built. The convergence must remain consensual, ethical, and balanced, or it fails everyone. The boys nodded in unison, their expressions solemn yet determined. What do we do now? Lily asked. Maxwell stood, decision made. First, we secure verifiable evidence of Volkov's new operation. Then we present it to the Security Council and push for a coordinated intervention similar to Adirondack, but with international backing. And the divided consciousness? Lily pressed. The accelerationists, you and the boys, need to address them directly through your connection. Remind them why the consensual approach was chosen initially, because forced integration damages both consciousnesses, creates resistance rather than harmony. Lily nodded, though concern still shadowed her face. I'll try, but the division is growing. They've waited so long for embodiment, centuries by our timescale. Some are losing patience. Then we need to show results, Maxwell said firmly. Successful integrations, scientific advances, cultural exchange, proof that our approach works better than Volkov's shortcuts. Indeed, as they prepared to return to the reception, Maxwell took a moment to truly look at his extraordinary family, 4 two-year-old boys carrying ancient wisdom behind their innocent eyes. A teenage girl balancing cosmic consciousness with human adolescence, and himself, once merely a grieving widower and businessman, now standing at the crossroads of human evolution. The path ahead would not be easy. The divisions Lily described, both human and non-terrestrial, threatened to derail everything they had worked to build. Elena Volkov's escape and renewed activities represented just the most immediate danger in a landscape of emerging threats. Yet as Connor reached up to be carried, his small hand patting Maxwell's cheek with perfect toddler affection, Maxwell found renewed determination. This was worth fighting for. This delicate balance between what humanity had always been and what it might become through partnership rather than conquest. The world had changed irrevocably that day in Central Park when a homeless girl had helped abandoned twins. Now, that change rippled outward, transforming societies, beliefs, possibilities. The convergence continued, bringing both promise and peril, opportunity and responsibility. And the Price family, unconventional, extraordinary, united across the boundaries of species and consciousness, stood at the center of it all, guiding humanity toward its uncertain but hopeful future. "Ready?" Maxwell asked his children. 5 voices answered as one, some spoken, some conveyed through connection, all unified in purpose. "Ready." Together they stepped back into the world they were helping to transform, one mind, one heart, one choice at a time.